Hey Hub City family, thanks for watching this video. We're in day 5 of Holy Week, traditionally known as Good Friday or Holy Friday. Kind of good is a synonym for holy, and really Good Friday, good is kind of coming from when you know what's coming in Resurrection Sunday. You can look back at the cross and see how ultimately it was for our good of the cross. But today specifically we're going to stay and kind of sit in the pain and the uncomfortable nature of Jesus Christ's sacrifice and death on the cross. But I want to start off reading today from the prophet Isaiah, in chapter 53 of Isaiah, verses 7 through 9, where Isaiah prophesied, "And he was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. Like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he opened not his mouth. By oppression and judgment he was taken away. And as for his generation, who considered that he was cut off out of the land of the living, stricken for the transgression of my people. And they made his grave with the wicked, and with a rich man in his death, although he had done no violence, and there was no deceit in his mouth." Powerful prophecy by Isaiah. But did you catch that line? By oppression and judgment he was taken away. That struck me this morning, just thinking of the kind of sad irony to me of how much that description is used of God himself and of God's nature, where people think because of God's oppression of me, or because of God's judgment on my life, this is happening, or such and such is painful, or that kind of thing. But when you read the Gospels, when you read the true story of Jesus, Jesus is the only human being who actually has the right to justly and rightly judge the world, and he doesn't do it. In fact, he gives his life as the ultimate gift of grace. And we've said this a couple times at Hub City, but we kind of break down where justice is getting what you deserve. Mercy is not getting what you deserve, but then there's this thing that Jesus introduces called grace. And grace is getting what you don't deserve. And today, thinking about Jesus offering himself as a living sacrifice is the gift we didn't deserve, but he gave it freely. So I'm going to be reading from the Gospel of Luke in the ESV, chapter 23. So grab a Bible, grab a smart device, follow along, or just even close your eyes and listen. Just want to picture the scene in your mind as we kind of read the narrative of Jesus' trial and crucifixion and death. This is Luke chapter 23. "Then the whole company of them arose and brought him before Pilate. And they began to accuse him, saying, 'We found this man misleading our nation and forbidding us to give tribute to Caesar, and saying that he himself is Christ a king.' And Pilate asked him, 'Are you the king of the Jews?' And he answered him, 'You have said so.' Then Pilate said to the chief priests and the crowds, 'I find no guilt in this man.' But they were urgent, saying, 'He stirs up the people, teaching throughout all Judea, from Galilee even to this place.' When Pilate heard this, he asked whether the man was a Galilean. When he learned that he belonged to Herod's jurisdiction, he sent him over to Herod, who was himself in Jerusalem at that time. When Herod saw Jesus, he was very glad, for he had long desired to see him, because he had heard about him. He was hoping to see some sign done by him. So he questioned him at some length, but he made no answer. The chief priests and the scribes stood by, vehemently accusing him, and Herod with his soldiers treated him with contempt and mocked him. Then, arraying him in splendid clothing, he sent him back to Pilate. And Herod and Pilate became friends with each other that very day, for before this they had been at enmity with each other. Pilate then called together the chief priests and the rulers and the people, and said to them, 'You brought me this man as one who was misleading the people. After examining him before you, behold, I do not find this man guilty of any of your charges against him. Neither did Herod, for he sent him back to us. Look, nothing deserving death has been done by him. I will therefore punish and release him.' But they all cried out together, 'Away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, a man who had been thrown into prison for an insurrection started in the city and for murder.' Pilate addressed them once more, desiring to release Jesus, but they kept shouting, 'Crucify, crucify him.' A third time he said to them, 'Why? What evil has he done? I have found in him no guilt deserving death. I will therefore punish and release him.' But they were urgent. demanding with loud cries that he should be crucified, and their voices prevailed. So Pilate decided that their demand should be granted. He released the man who had been thrown into prison for insurrection and murder, for whom they asked, but he delivered Jesus over to their will. And as they led him away, they seized one Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, and laid on him the cross to carry it behind Jesus. And there followed him a great multitude of the people and of women who were mourning and lamenting for him. But turning to them, Jesus said, "Daughters of Jerusalem, do not weep for me, but weep for yourselves and for your children. For behold, the days are coming when they will say, Blessed are the barren, and the wombs that never bore, and the breasts that never nursed. Then they will begin to say to the mountains, Fall on us, and to the hills, Cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it is dry?" 2 others who were criminals were led away to be put to death with him. And when they came to the place that is called the Skull, there they crucified him, and the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. And Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And they cast lots to divide his garments, and the people stood by watching. But the rulers scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself, if he is the Christ of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine, saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There were also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged railed at him, saying, "Are you not the Christ? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we are receiving the due rewards of our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong. And he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And he said to him, "Truly I say to you, today you will be with me in paradise." It was now about the 6th hour, and there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour, while the sun's light failed, and the curtain of the temple was torn in two. Then Jesus, calling out with a loud spirit, said, "Father, into your hands I commit my spirit." And having said this, he breathed his last. Now when the centurion saw what had taken place, he praised God, saying, "Certainly this man was innocent." And all the crowds that had assembled for the spectacle, when they saw what had taken place, returned home beating their breasts. And all his acquaintances and the women who had followed him from Galilee stood at a distance watching these things. Now there was a man named Joseph from the Jewish town of Arimathea. He was a member of the council, a good and righteous man, who had not consented to their decision and action. He was looking for the kingdom of God. This man went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Then he took it down and wrapped it in a linen shroud and laid him in a tomb cut in stone, where no one had ever yet been laid. It was the day of preparation, and the Sabbath was beginning. The women who had come with him from Galilee followed and saw the tomb and how his body was laid. Then they returned and prepared spices and ointments. On the Sabbath they rested according to the commandment. The Apostle Paul in the book of Romans chapter 5 verse 8 writes, "But God shows his love for us, in that while we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Today is for us to meditate on the grace of God and the grace of Jesus Christ on the cross. And here at Hub City, we've also made a Good Friday liturgy. You can go onto our website and you can click on the Good Friday liturgy box, and it'll take you to just an order of service that we kind of crafted. Would encourage everybody to go through that, with whether you're individually or with your family, just to kind of keep on our hearts and our minds, just keep focused on the grace of Jesus Christ as we remember his loving sacrifice today. So I love you, Hub City. Go check out the Good Friday liturgy today. Thanks.